What's up, guys? A new weapon got added to Payday 2, the X1-ZAPper electrical grenade. Now before we get into the weapon itself, let's go over how to unlock it. If you've been observant, you'll notice that Overkill added a new achievement to the game that allows you to unlock this grenade. It's actually a part of the Feng Smuggler Pack 2 DLC, which isn't out yet, so this is like a neat little preview. The unlock conditions for it are pretty generous. Get some melee kills with electrical melees while wearing a free skin, or buy the DLC. And hell, the skin actually looks pretty decent, you know? You're not just some mangled, inbred cannibal, you know? Some of these skins can make you look pretty crazy. So, there's a free option as well as a paid option. Not a bad deal. Though I am pretty bothered by the fact that to unlock a grenade weapon, you have to get melee kills and not grenade kills. But I digress. So this weapon kind of flew under my radar because Overkill released a changelog that, lo and behold, doesn't actually tell us that there's a new achievement or a new weapon that we can unlock. Let's just add this to the pile of extremely questionable behavior Overkill does. You know, give us a changelog that doesn't actually show the most important changes. Oh, but we gotta know about the new changes to normal difficulty! Anyway, dumb shit aside, we got a new toy to play with, and that's always reason for me to be interested. So what's the deal with this? How useful is it? What can it be used for? And most of all, is it worth using? So I went ahead and did a bunch of small tests for you guys. First off, is it lethal to civilians?
I am unstoppable!
Surprisingly, the grenade went off and killed the guard, but didn't kill any civs or break any windows. Well, that's kinda neat, if you care at all about being a civ pacifist anyway. Okay, now one of my biggest questions. Can it be used for stealth? Surely an electrical grenade has some uses, right? Maybe it's like the ECM? Unfortunately, it's not stealthy at all. It alerts the entire map as far as I can tell. And as an added bonus, if you're too close to the explosion, you'll get tased by your own grenade. Okay, well, maybe you can use it for other stuff? Like how ECMs can open security doors? Nope, not that either. SWAT van turrets. Nope, doesn't do a damn thing. And what about the rest of the enemies? Regular units, specials, Captain Winners? For the most part, it works on all the things you'd expect the electrical melees to work on. Shields, tasers, cloakers, they all get affected by the grenade. However, Captain Winters is unfortunately immune to the grenade, making it a horrible option if you want a contingency against him and his phalanxes. In fact, the electrical grenade is also a pretty poor counter to shields in general. Sure, they get staggered when they're hit, but if you're facing them head on, they'll still have their shield up, making them hard to shoot past, unless you have armor piercing, in which case you wouldn't need this grenade's help anyway. So what's the verdict? After playing with them for a couple hours, I think the electrical grenades are fun, but not overly useful. They function very similarly to flashbangs, mostly for an AoE stun that can give you some breathing room. However, the stun is pretty short-lived, and you won't really get out of really hairy situations because enemies will most likely recover before you can actually make it out alive. Unsurprisingly, it does very little damage, and you really should not be expecting to kill anything on higher difficulties unless they've already been weakened pretty substantially. That being said, these things do have a pretty crazy range, and it doesn't really seem like they're affected by falloff like some of the other throwables are. And what I mean by that is, at the furthest point of its effective reach, it'll still electrocute enemies for about just as long as those in the center. So as with all grenades, you have a very limited amount, starting with only 4, and you're kind of expected to make use of it for an entire heist. I mean, the only way to replenish them is through the asset, if you buy it, or if you run the AI skill that lets you regenerate grenades after getting, 70 kills? But for the most part, what you start off with is what you're gonna have. As such, what you put into that slot is extremely important, and I don't really see the electrical grenades being a must-have. Being able to pick back up throwing axes and javelins makes them really good for self-sustainability. And with normal grenades, you can actually do damage to the targets that are important, like big groups of enemies, or especially Captain Winters. The electrical grenades, they're not that bad by themselves, but rather, they're just not really suited for this game. You know, this game doesn't really have a focus on fewer enemies that need smarter tactics and skills to take down. This game is very much the opposite. Relentless waves and waves and waves of enemies thrown at you without fail. Now, whether or not that's a good or bad thing is a whole nother can of worms I could spend an hour on. But the point of it is this. With the game the way it currently is, I can't really see these grenades being all that useful. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually think they're very fun. But the scarcity of throwables and the lack of ways to replenish them means it's not really suited for fighting, say, hundreds of possible enemies in any given mission. And with some of these heists taking upwards of 15-20 minutes, why bring something like this when you can have tools at your disposal that already do something similar? Say, hacker feedback, grenade launchers, the flamethrower, even regular grenades. You know, they all offer a fair amount of stun without having to sacrifice damage. Well, not hacker feedback, you get what I'm saying. The game has a decent amount of weapons and skills that offer crowd control, which means that the electrical grenades have to fight for that role, as well as a place in your throwable slot. It's a bit of a hard bargain. But, like I said, I do find these to be pretty enjoyable, and it's pretty satisfying to see an entire group of enemies get electrocuted simultaneously. Even though Payday looks like a game from 2013, the little electrical effects, they're still fun to watch.